What problems are troubling you? What's frustrating you, bothering you, worrying you? Want solutions? Want answers? Welcome to Here We Come to Save the Day, hosted by David Adelson. This podcast is dedicated to solving everyday and global problems in an uplifting, fun, enjoyable way. There is a solution to whatever's troubling you. Ask your questions and we'll do our best to give you practical, useful, workable solutions you can use starting today. Join us now with David's special guest experts who will share their own experiences, life lessons, and practical strategies for creating the life you long for. Start living your best life today, right now, with David Adelson and friends.
So welcome to another episode of Here We Come to Save the Day. Today we're with Claudia Muehlenweg, and she's going to tell you how to fix your eyes easily and comfortably without power drills or power tools of any kind, and ideally glasses and stuff. So welcome, Claudia.
Hi, I'm super excited to be here, David.
Well, I'm so glad you can be here. I heard you talk before at the New Media Summit about what the magic that you can do with eyes. So in a real quick, couple sentences, let's give everybody listening an idea of what they can expect from listening to today's podcast. What problem are you going to solve? How are you going to save their day?
So there's a lot of myths around eyesight that we commonly believe that are told, by the media, by the doctors. And one of them is that your vision can only decline. Especially as you get older, there's just no way to improve your eyesight. That's kind of like what we all accepted. But when you know that eyes are part of the brain, in fact, 90% of your vision is actually brain-based and 10% is eyeball-based, right? So once you know that, and once we know now about neuroplasticity, and we know about the ability to train our brain, and the brain is also the driver of the nervous system, deciding which muscles to contract and all those things, then you know that we can improve our eyesight. So it's kind of, the current eye care industry is really based on a 200-year-old model, and they look at your eyeball as if it's not attached to you, the brain, the person, your emotions, your stress level, how you sleep, what you eat, all those factors affect your vision. And so once you get that, then it makes sense that, why should eyesight only get worse? And it's all based, like everything that's related to our health is really based on relaxation and being in a relaxed state. That's, also known as the rest and digest state, right? Versus the fight or flight state. So good vision is based on that. And it's also important to know that vision varies for everyone. So up to every 10 seconds, your vision can get slightly better, slightly worse. Yes?
I was just going to say, we'll get into this more in a couple of minutes, but now that you've given them that overview, which is very exciting to me, because especially at the end, you brought up this idea of rest, and now I'm thinking you probably know something else besides eat carrots that can help us. And but let's tell people who you are. So, do you want to say, or do you want me to read this thing? Why don't you say? You know better than I do. So,
so yeah, my name is Claudia Muehlenweg, and you did a beautiful job pronouncing my German name. And I've been a vision teacher since 2009. I did have vision problems myself, right? That's usually how we get into something. I got glasses at age 3, and I absolutely hated them. When I went to start school, I was bullied and teased, and they made me really insecure. And I was always determined to get rid of them. And as a child, I didn't know any better, right? I just wore them, and I was told I have to wear them all the time. And then as I got a little older, I did some research, and that was way before the internet, so I had to actually go to bookstores. And I found out about this thing called the Bates method. And Dr. Bates wrote his groundbreaking book exactly 100 years ago. So I did the practices, and my vision got better. And I realized it works. And I was able to actually ditch my glasses in my 20s. And then in my 30s, long story short, I was in a difficult marriage, stress, all these things I know now got me back into glasses. And after my divorce, as a single mom, I realized, I know I've done this before, and I don't believe that just now, because I'm in my early 40s, now I can't do it. And that's when I get really back into this. and did the teacher training and really learned how to get rid of glasses. And I've been glasses free since 18 years.
Wow.
So, yeah. And my mission is to empower other people to do the same.
And I think a key point, but thank you for explaining that. A key point is not just glasses free for 18 years, but being able to see glasses free, because I know some people who just don't wear their glasses, but they can't, they're bumping into things or they're not finding things.
Thank you for clarifying that. I mean, see clearly, without glasses, contacts, or surgery. Correct.
Yeah, this is very exciting to me because this idea of 10% is the eyeball and 90% is what happens in the mind, because in my own healing work I've worked with people where they have continued rapidly deteriorating, usually in the older years, rapidly deteriorating eyesight. And in the guidance that I get, the first thing that we always ask them is, what is it in the world you don't want to see? What is it that you're blocking? And my healing work can help them so far. And we've been very successful. We got rid of my mother's macular degeneration. And at the time that we did that, her eye doctor said he'd never seen anybody reverse it. And now you can find, if you look online, you can find all kinds of treatments. So if you don't mind, let's start with that. Because I know that's a very I know a lot of things that go into creating that particular issue. And then we want to get to other stuff, near and farsighted and all that, but let's start with something that's as significant as macular degeneration. Do you have the tools? Can you, with the people that you work with, is that something that you have successfully encountered and helped people overcome?
That's a great question. So I did and I have been working with people with eye diseases for sure. I have not had a client with macular degeneration or age-related macular degeneration. I did work with a client who had congenital macular degeneration, which you get, as a kid. I mean, it usually really develops in your early 20s or late teens, 18. So I worked with her. We didn't reverse it because it was congenital, but we got her to the point where she could see a whole lot more. It's a very debilitating eye disease. So I would love to know more about what you did with your mom, because that's the thing that I really find important. Is it's a holistic approach, not like one thing. The practices I use will always improve your vision. However, it's not necessarily always possible to completely get cells back that have literally died off, right? That are completely destroyed. So it depends. I always tell my students that you can improve anything, but it also depends on how long you've had it, a lot of other factors that come into play. But I guess your work is really based more on energy and all that work and emotions. And like you said, not being able to, or not wanting to see the future, right? Like, what do you not want to see? So,
yeah. Well, I mean, that's an interesting thing, because a lot of people, there's a lot of pain in this world. I mean, right now we're going through this thing where everybody's on lockdown. And on one hand, that may be considered a not good thing. But on the other hand, there's some amazing things happening on the planet, including, less pollution, and all kinds of pictures are coming up of things that people, in India, I saw a week or two ago that they can now, from 230 kilometers away, they can see the Himalayan mountains, which they haven't been able to do in 100 years. I mean, some ridiculous amount of time. And all these other things are happening. So one of the fun things regarding vision is, and I've seen a lot of pictures and a lot of comments, including LA smog going down, and in Mumbai and all these other places where people hadn't been able to see, that now you can see. So I kind of think that there's a clearing going on, some greater clarity, which involves vision. And one of the things that we're finding is we're not being subject to a lot of the brutal daily violence as much as we have been. And I think that's, when I talk to people and I say, what is it you don't want to see in the world? The news, whatever is on the news, whatever, you talked about bullying. So let's talk about a little bit of, if you don't mind, what tools, let's you talk for a minute, explain, somebody comes up to you and their eyesight is deteriorating, whatever level. Maybe they're in sixth grade, which is when I got glasses, or maybe they're 50 or 60. How do you start? What's the first thing that happens when you meet a client?
So the first thing I usually do is, if it's a private client, I do like a really thorough assessment, right, of the history of, like you mentioned in sixth grade, right, or yeah. So usually with children that suddenly become nearsighted, there's usually some emotional, what we call adverse childhood event, or a combination of different events that cause kind of a contraction of where you don't feel the world is safe. So your nervous system kind of wants to keep you in that safe mode, and that, relaxes, or it blocks out those things that it makes it blurry. And it's not really myopia at that point, or it's called pseudomyopia, where it's not your eyeball is too long yet, but usually you get sent to the eye doctor, and then you get the glasses, and the glasses manifest that. And they've done lots of animal experiments to show that if you put those lenses, that the eyeball changes length. But so I usually do that. I do a thorough intake into, the vision habits, the diet, everything. And then the first thing that I say is what I mentioned earlier: become aware of your vision and how it fluctuates. And glasses usually keep you from noticing that, because they allow you to have bad habits, staring, straining, mental strain, and still give you clarity. It's kind of like taking metformin for diabetes instead of, actually addressing your diet. So when you take them off, or you use reduced glasses, which is another step I do with clients that cannot just take their glasses off, right? Become aware of, like, what are my patterns? What is affecting my clarity? Is it like stress? Do I see better in the morning or the evening? The task that you're doing, the lighting, there's a lot of factors. So I really want them to become aware, like your emotional state, like your insights, like how do you feel about the world right now? So there's a lot, I want them to really become almost like a detective. So not judging it, oh, why is my vision blurry again? But like, oh, like my vision is blurry right now. Like, what's going on? Like really tuning in. So that's kind of the first step that we do. And from there, I also teach them to check their own vision on an eye chart, because what I find is that pretty much 100% of my students do not know what a prescription means. They don't understand the numbers. They don't know what the doctor tells them, what's wrong with them. So we really talk about that so they have an understanding. And then we work on either getting reduced glasses, or if they can, do certain tasks without glasses. Let's say you're nearsighted, you might be able to read without glasses, or be on the computer without glasses. So I educate them basically on diopters, how they only correct you for one distance. And so creating that kind of like, do I need the glasses for this task? Do I need my distance glasses if I'm at home cooking? Maybe not. So that's kind of the first step to really kind of, yeah. Then you want me to move on, or?
No, this is very good. So I realized as soon as you said, if you're doing a private client, so is this something that you can do online? Can you do it by video, or does it have to be one-on-one?
No, I have a course and I have a membership. So I teach that also in my membership and in my course. I don't do the thorough like vision history and life history so much with my online students, right? I give them some questions, but it's not like the same, like, hour and a half where you really go through everything, So, but yeah, I teach the prescriptions, and I teach how to order reduced glasses, and I go with them in the group coaching call. We really break down everybody's prescription, take astigmatism out, and if they have progressive, I break it into 2 pairs, because progressive glasses cause so many postural problems that then often create astigmatism. So we do all that. I guide people online as well, in group courses as well as in private sessions.
Okay, so thank you for that. I'm going to get personal, because why not? You're here, and I have, as you know, when you met me, I only wore dark glasses for, the whole 3 or 4 days that we were in that situation together. And normally that's all I do. And I've actually had eye doctors, I do that because eye doctors said, you need to wear dark glasses. And I have progressive lenses, and I'm nearsighted and farsighted and the whole thing. And no, I don't want to see the world, because, I like love and light and beauty, and, I'm not fascinated by a lot of other things. So when we look at all of these things together, where would you start with me? What would be, and I'm asking, I mean, yes, I want to know the answer, but I'm also very aware that the process should be quite intriguing for people who are listening, because I've got all of them. So we can fix any of them, whatever they've got's covered. So walk me through, let's just see what happens here.
So I'm curious about your dark glasses. When I first met you, I was curious, and I didn't want to ask because I also, find like, unless somebody, like you asking me now, but I didn't want to just say, hey, why are you wearing sunglasses inside? So I'd be curious about your light sensitivity and what's going on. Why do you have that light sensitivity? That would be my first question.
Interesting. Well, I have to add one little thing too, which is that when I first started wearing dark glasses, I didn't think much about it. It was just, okay, now you're supposed to wear them. But then I started thinking, and some little flavor of vanity came in, because people told me some about that looked kind of cool and stuff. And then I was thinking, well, and when I was getting my photo taken for that event, the last time, they said, well, if that's part of your brand, and I was like deciding, do I want it to be? Because they're fun, but at the same time, it would be nice to be able to see the world brightly. And I used to spend a lot of time very fascinated by light. That's something that I like. So I used to spend a lot of time not looking at the sun by any means, but bright things would attract me, and I'd spend a long time looking at things. Also, I've now spent, decades in front of a computer for, 10 hours plus a day, doing the work that I do. Does that answer your question about light?
No, yes and no. I mean, so there is, actually, I don't recommend sunglasses at all. However, there is exceptions, like always, right? There is certain eye diseases. There is an eye disease where your pupils don't contract, and that's we actually have built-in sunglasses, the pupils, right? They get really small when it's bright, and they open up when it's dark. And there's extreme conditions like skiing on a glacier, or if you went to the eye doctor and they put atropine in your eyes, which opens your pupils for the eye exam, or if you take certain drugs that keep your pupils enlarged. There's exceptions, and right, with macular degeneration and secondary occurrence of cataracts, I would also be cautious. But in general, light sensitivity is related to so-called refractive errors, which are nearsightedness, farsightedness, and astigmatism. And, the other point about the sunglasses is, from a non-physical aspect, would be like, do you want to hide in a way? Because, now that we're looking at each other, I see your beautiful eyes, and I feel a much deeper connection than, like that kind of cop-like, So I know what you mean with that feeling of feeling cool, and it's kind of been made, sunglasses have been kind of made cool. They were invented like in the 1930s, late 1920s and the 30s. Aldous Huxley wrote a great piece about them in his book, The Art of Seeing, because he used this method to improve his vision. And he was like complaining about, they used to be worn only by those afflicted, the blind, and now Hollywood stars are wearing these sunglasses. So I think Hollywood has really made them kind of popular. And what I have noticed, just from my own experience and that with my clients, is that the more you wear sunglasses, the more sluggish your pupil reaction gets, because your pupils open up behind the sunglasses. So you kind of, that training of opening and closing them. And I was so light sensitive, and I do live in Los Angeles, that I wore them on overcast days. And I live in Los Angeles, where it's usually sunny, but even when it was not sunny, it was too bright for me. And at the same time, I noticed that night driving was a big problem for me. The oncoming headlights, especially those bright lights, or if you had an SUV behind you and you had them in your rear view mirror, like I would always have to kind of flip that mirror around. So for me and then when the car has passed, it was like all black and I couldn't see anything. And when I stopped wearing sunglasses, like 11 years ago, like all that disappeared. Like I don't have, what I usually do, I wear a hat sometimes if the angle of the sun is weird. I wear a baseball cap or a hat. Or if I would be skiing and it's bright snow and really extreme, then yeah, I would put sunglasses on, right, in those conditions.
Good.
Yeah.
So that's very helpful. Now, you talked a little bit about like there are exceptions to the rules, but can you give us, we talked in the beginning about what we were going to address today. You talked about diet and all of and the mind and everything. Do you have, 1, 2, 3, 5, whatever key ideas that just as general, you would just say this basically should be in your educational system. You should know this from kindergarten on. Here are things that you can do so that your eyesight stays forever getting better. Do you have some tips like that you can share with us?
I have a lot of tips. I'm trying to think of the most useful ones. So one simple thing that's super important for good vision is blinking. And blinking is not just, it prevents staring. So the opposite of good vision is staring, like really staring like a deer in the headlights. And blinking is almost like a little reset. And it also lubricates your cornea. So your cornea, right, which is the front part of your eye, doesn't have any blood supply. And only 10 seconds of not blinking thins the tear film. And I hear that a lot, that I have dry eyes, especially on the computer, my eyes are dry. So blinking is key. One of my friends just turned 101 years old. He has perfect vision and he blinks like almost every second. So that's
Wow.
one simple thing. It's like breathing, right? Blinking and breathing we do automatically, but we can also practice doing it, right? So maybe if you blink too little, you can do 30 seconds of butterfly blinking really quick. And that will kind of stimulate your mind to like, oh, this feels really good. This feels good in my eyes. Something you can do also is resting your eyes. I was talking a little bit about, we have our eyes open pretty much all day. We wouldn't do that with, other body parts, or like, we sit down to rest sometimes and rest other body parts. We take breaks, we sit down. I'm at a standing desk right now, but I won't stand here all day. But the eyes, we usually don't close them. We don't rest them. So that's something that I find really helpful. And most of my students see big results just closing the eyes. And then you cover them with your cupped palms. So your fingers cross over your forehead and your nose, you can breathe. And you just close your eyes. And it's like a little cave for your eyes, right? It's a little cocoon of rest. And then you meditate. You want to make sure you relax your mind, right? Because the strain starts in the mind, the effort and the anxiety and all that starts in the mind and then gets transferred into your eyes. So that's a great strategy.
I want to interrupt here because this idea of closing your eyes, when you said something about most of us don't close our eyes, and I immediately thought, well, yeah, we don't want to do that while you're driving. But when we were kids, we were driving on some really hairy cliff kind of windy road and everything, and my sister said that it really bothered her and she was really scared, and my father, who was driving, said, just do what I do, close your eyes. But he was being funny because we know he didn't do that. He was entertaining. But yeah, so we don't want to do it there, but I like this idea of just taking a few minutes to close the eyes. How often do you recommend that they do that? For how long? What do you mentioned meditation, but that's, and so, yeah.
Great question. So I personally don't like to prescribe certain amounts of time. However, if people ask me, I would say start in the morning. You can do it in bed. You can prop your elbows, on a cushion or something so your elbows can relax. And then maybe do it for 5 minutes before you get out of bed. Do it in the middle of the day after lunch. I really enjoy like a little break after my lunch and then before you go to bed. However, what I like to say more is once you notice that pattern I was talking about earlier, when you detect yourself, like for some people, the vision is best in the morning. And then by afternoon, the eyes are tired. So I'm like, well, ideally you do this rest preventatively, right? So you do a little bit in the morning to start the day and to have clear intentions and be calm. And that I do it with my meditation. So I do the palming. It's called palming when you cover because you use the palms of your hands to cover your eyes. Like you start the day in a good way, right? With like being relaxed and your eyes feeling good. And then I like to do a little bit in the middle of the day and then in the late evening or before I go to bed. And some people might notice that the vision is worse in the morning. And that might be because their sleep is not restful. They might do a lot of straining and clenching the teeth and just a lot of stress, stuff at night. So for them, maybe doing a little bit longer in the morning, and then maybe they don't need as much at night. But I really recommend to tune into your own needs, right? Versus being like, oh, I have to do, because I had a client who would do 10 minutes or 20 minutes, but then she would listen to CNN and get all agitated about the news. And I'm like, it's more important that you tune in, that you take a few deep breaths, that you relax, and that you really feel that inner visual field when your eyes are closed and you cover them, it's really black. So if it's not black, if it's like grainy or the old TV, snowy, kind of like patches, that is like mental activity, really, because your eyes are closed, you cover them, there's no light input coming. So that's just like nervous system firing signals, right? So that's a good sign for you, like, hey, maybe I need a few more minutes, to really feel like completely relaxed.
Thank you for that. Because I think that's very useful. What do you feel, I noticed that you talk about all kinds of different eye complaints. Do you find that you get more, is there one kind of complaint that kind of rises to the top and you see a lot of, or a solution to that, to many different things that's the same solution in addition to what we've talked about? What comes to mind here?
Yeah, I feel like in the end of the day, it always comes back to strain. You can call it tension, you can call it effort. And for somebody that's nearsighted, they're making more effort when looking into the distance. For somebody that's presbyopic, which is when you get reading glasses, in your 40s, they make more effort at the near point. So I find that's a common, like there's some type of strain, depending on what task. So the task or the distance is different, but it comes back to making an effort and not being relaxed. And again, the relaxation starts in the mind. It's the eyes, yeah, the eyes too, but it starts in the mind. Because the nervous system doesn't know the difference between real danger and you imagining it. Like anxiety is an example of that. It's all like future thoughts about the future, but eyesight can only happen in the present moment, right? Like actual seeing is only in the present moment, right? Everything else is foresight or imagination, or it's memory and hindsight, but the actual vision happens in the present moment. And a lot of times people think about different, like they don't look because in their mind they're occupied with what am I going to do later, like what am I going to eat for dinner, so you're not paying attention also to, or you do things on autopilot. But yeah, it comes down to strain. That's the common denominator. And certain tasks, like being on the computer, is usually a bigger strain or a bigger trigger, for bad vision habits and strain than other activities like hiking or something. If you like nature, for instance, it's usually, like if you compare being on the computer to a hike, for most people, there's a bigger amount of efforting and strain when they work on the computer, as an example.
Good. So it keeps coming back to this tension thing. So how do you address that? So I'm Bob, Peter, whoever is, they're tense about seeing in, the distance or seeing up close or something, or they're looking at the computer all the time. And a big one is, trying to block something happening in the world. How do you start to culture them to stop doing it? When you were talking about, not seeing presently, all this stuff is going in the mind. So many people have had that experience where they get to the end of a long road, maybe a 10-minute drive that they've done many times, and they have no recollection of driving that road. They're like, how did yes, this is where I should be, but I don't remember seeing anything along the way because they're engrossed in that. And I have to trust, thank God, or whoever took care of us all to get to that. But how do we get rid of the tension? Yeah, let's just do that.
So there's several aspects of that. One, from a pure anatomical reason, which is really pretty much the foundation of good vision, is You've probably seen these eye diagrams, maybe like a side of the eye, right, where the light rays get bundled and then they fall in this little spot on the retina.
Yes.
It's called the fovea, which is inside the macula. And the fovea is a very, very small spot about the size of a pinhead or top of a pencil, a tip of a pencil or something. Very, very small. And that's the only area in the whole retina where we have perfect, absolute clarity. That was mind-blowing for me when I first heard that. The rest is peripheral, and we know peripheral vision as that big outer peripheral right on the sides, at the top and the bottom, but there's middle periphery and near periphery. So what this means is if you look at a letter or a word, right, and you look at that first letter, let's say you have a word with like 10 letters, and you look at that first letter, even the second one is not as sharp as that one that you're looking at. So, and the further away things are, the more blurry they are. This is normal vision. That's how our eyeball is constructed, basically. Right?
Okay, this is new. This is exciting to me. I had no idea. So this is what, yeah, no, go ahead.
Yeah, but so that's once you understand that principle, and so that one idea, I give you an example here. So what I hear sometimes from college students, they did speed reading, and speed reading in a way where you try to see like a whole paragraph. And this is not photographic memory. I'm not talking about making a photo memory, but actually trying to see like all these sentences clearly at the same time. Not possible. You're looking with parts of your retina that can never produce clarity, and that will be a huge strain and will always result in blur. So when you understand that principle, and I'm trying to think of an example right now that we can give to listeners, doesn't matter what you look at. You know, it could be birds on a wire, it could be your text, you know, in front of you. You need to move your attention along, like say a row of text. You need to move your attention along, and your eyes are moving along. You know, you don't have to look at every single letter, right? It's kind of like a quick process. The brain is quick, you know. And kids, when they start reading, you know how they always use a finger to kind of keep their point in the text? That's actually good practice I do with a lot of my students, because realizing that, okay, my eyes are here now, and now we're moving along versus trying to see again this whole sentence at the same time. And it comes to these little jumps your eyes make called saccadic eye movements. So think of them as like your eye makes like a million little snapshots really quickly. So you get that feeling of like there's clarity, but your eyes or your attention constantly shifts. And then the rest, this IMAX movie theater experience that we have, is kind of your peripheral vision, right? That rest of the retina that fills in, like making you think you have this big, you have this big image, but only a tiny spot of it is perfectly clear.
Huh. So this is like amazing information, but how, so we've got the, you know, following the finger when you're doing things, which you're not going to do while you're driving or walking down the street, because you'll look weird, or even on your computer screen, people will think that's strange. Does that reduce the tension when you're doing it, or what, you know, obviously there's meditation techniques and stuff, but some people are just nervous. They don't get a good night's sleep on a regular basis, or whatever. I think, you know, you hit the nail on the head with this idea of people are worried, anxious about the future, or regretting the past or something, and they're not living in the present moment. When we're looking at fixing the eyes, and if the eyes are 90%, if the vision is 90% what's going on in the mind, what tools and techniques actually address the mind, actually address changing the way we interpret experiences, or helping us be in the present moment? I mean, do you address that in your work? I mean, you must address that in your work.
Yeah, Dick, some of the practices are more mind-based or brain-based, and I like to call that top-down. And meditation while you're palming is an example. So in palming, in those meditations, you can use any kind of focal point. It could be, usually what I start with is like a pleasant memory, like something, or a thing that makes you happy. It could be a loved one. It could be a smell. It could be a sound, but kind of bring your mind to a place where you feel completely relaxed, completely happy, right? And really feel that with all your senses as you're doing the palming. So you're not necessarily locking your eyes into one place. Like you're not like, but you're feeling that relaxation wash over you, and it starts really in the mind, connecting with something that completely relaxes you. There's other things you can, I'm teaching a journey through the eyes, so you're palming and you imagine your lens relaxing, and then the inner eyeball, there's different guided meditations I provide that are more like a top-down, mind starting approach. And then there's also, some bottom up, like I call them bottom up techniques. One of them is simple self-massage to release tension, especially tension that we have from this stress-related chest breathing, from having bad posture, tension in the neck. The neck is like the bottleneck to your brain to provide your brain with oxygen. So, and I find like pretty much everybody has tension in their shoulders, the neck, even the jaw, the temples, in the back of the head. So I work with that. And then there is techniques to improve eye movements. I talked about that concept of central clarity and how small it is. So improving your eye movements. So there's specific techniques I'm teaching that are why you could think of them as mechanical. They're really about relaxing into like letting your eyes move. You're not trying to make your eyes move. It's more like you're moving your attention. Like when you think of a ball bearing that's like nicely greased, like on a, and it just moves really smoothly, versus some movement practices, when you first do them, it feels more like your eyes are like ping pong balls, or like a rusty, like, versus like this smooth kind of movement that feels very effortless. So I hope that makes sense. I'm trying to...
No, it does. It's actually very impressive. I do want to mention, I know you teach particular meditation techniques. I always like to give a plug for TM meditation, because it helped me a lot of my friends, and that's a little bit different than the things that you're talking about. And I don't think one is, I think you could do both. And if we're talking about, something to help you in the morning, tm.org, for those who are interested, can find out about TM. And that's a 20-minute practice of meditation, but it's very beneficial. And there's all these, there's hundreds of research studies about what it does. I honestly don't know if they've ever actually addressed the eyes, but what I love about what you've got, Claudia, is when you're talking about all these different, the top down, the bottom down, it sounds like, and again, just to give you the appreciation for the amount of information that you're offering and the clarity of the holistic vision that you're offering people, and I'm aware using the word vision intentionally here, it really seems like you're giving people tools at all the different levels, inner, outer, physical massage, things to do with your eyes closed, exercises directly to the eyes. And I applaud you. That's absolutely incredible. And it sounds like so much thought and attention has gone into producing such a comprehensive program. And I want to encourage people to look into it, because it's just, why not enjoy the world? It's a beautiful world for us. And there's a couple areas I want to cover. We're a little bit over, but I just want to cover. We haven't mentioned diet at all, and I just cursorily, is that something you address? And if so, any main 1 or 2 points? Like, should I stop eating paint, or?
This is one of my favorite subjects. There's 2 things we have not mentioned yet, and I do want to say a couple of words about diet, and then one other sentence about something else. So diet is actually a huge thing for me. Diabetes, or blood sugar imbalances, are the leading cause of blindness in this country. And you don't have to have diabetes to experience vision problems. So a lot of cataracts, glaucoma, macular degeneration can all be traced back to dietary problems. But it's really, like, to make it really simple, sugar is like the worst thing you can eat for your eyes. So,
okay, can all be traced back to dietary problems. Is that correct? That's what you said?
Yeah.
Okay.
So, yeah. So like doctors often say, it's actually called age-related macular degeneration, AMD. Or, the doctor says, oh, you're in your mid-60s, cataracts, it's just normal at your age. I like to say this is lifestyle related. It's not age related, right? Different from inherited diseases, like I mentioned earlier, the macular degeneration. So it's just stuff catches up with you over time. The toxins, the bad diet, dark leafy greens are super important for macular health. If you ever buy eye vitamins, they usually have lutein, zeaxanthin, and sometimes astaxanthin in them, which are the yellow plant pigments that cover the macula, that absorb the blue light from the sun. So, if you don't have those in your diet, eventually over time, it gets more and more depleted, right? So they have to be replenished with diet. So whatever you hear regularly, eat the colors of the rainbow, don't eat sugar. It's 100% true for your vision in terms of really simplifying the diet. And one thing about carrots, they are great. They have beta carotene, which is a precursor to vitamin A, which helps you night vision. However, I found out that they raise my blood sugar to really diabetic levels. So I have to now really limit fruit and those sweet, veggies, these root veggies, and eat them with a lot of greens in very small amount. And so, it's not always that simple how people say, eat these 10 superfoods, it's usually more on an individual basis. But yeah, just to simplify it, eat lots of good veggies in different colors, especially dark leafy greens.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up this idea about balance, because I saw a thing last year about somebody who was working on clearing his macular degeneration, and he had pictures of what the eye doctor took one time and then later, and what he did, as near as I can tell, was eat 3,000 watermelons a day. I mean, I have no idea, but some absolutely outrageous amount of watermelons. And then, it did whatever it was that was in watermelon or watermelon juice. It did make a difference. But then, when I'm hearing you, I'm also thinking, I don't eat that much food. Period. What he was saying, the amounts that he was saying, and also just this idea of blood sugar. Because again, if you're having that kind of watermelons, your blood sugar has got to be doing some interesting things. So while that may solve problem A, it's not necessarily solving problem. I mean, it could be causing other problems in and of itself. So I love the idea that you talked about all the colors of the rainbow and a fully integrated, and if you're doing carrots, you're also doing these other things. And that's one of the things that I'm appreciating a lot about you, Claudia, is just that you're not saying this one thing, you're saying we need to take into account, and that's the definition of holistic. That's the whole point, is we're not saying here's the one thing that if you add or don't add this to your life program, it will solve the problem. I also want to mention this idea about eye doctors, and I don't know what I think about this. I'm not passing judgment, but I have one of my dearest friends who has diabetes, is now, and is an artist. Painting is how he makes his living, or should be, because he's like staggeringly amazing. But he's now, I don't know if it's every other week or how often it's happening, but he's going to the eye doctors on a Thursday afternoon to get an injection directly into his eye. And then it's taking him a good 24 or more hours to recover from that. And I think a large part of that is the trauma of having that happen. It takes him a couple hours to get ready for it, and he's been doing it for a while. And I just think that's such a brutal way to address something. And he's very, very vigilant about the diabetes thing. He's constantly monitoring it, and I need to go for a run, or I need to work out, or I can't eat this late at night. I mean, he's monitoring the whole thing. Any suggestions? I mean, you're not talking to him, you don't know his whole history, but any idea of what people can do to either avoid or end that cycle? I mean, his brother is not an artist, but his brother started getting those shots in his eyes, a long time before he did.
Wow. So I would guess he has macular edema or like some of the diabetes related changes. And I just want to say one thing about this. I work with a mentor. I'm actually in her program to study nutritional endocrinology because sugar is such a big problem. And I completely reversed my own diet, which I thought was healthy. First of all, everybody's different. We all react differently. I'm way more sensitive to like all starches than my sister, for instance, is, right? Her blood sugar stays low and mine goes to the roof. So what they never check at the doctor is what's called the postprandial, like after eating. They usually test your fasting blood sugar, and 60% of people that have retinal damages based on blood sugar have normal fasting blood sugars under 100. So a lot of times the diabetes gets discovered in the eyes first. And for your friend, I know that you can reverse diabetes. So I don't know exactly what he's doing, but it's really about I had to eliminate a tons of food from my diet that are, supposed to be super healthy. They're just not good for me, right? So becoming aware of that. And so the way to prevent that is to start checking your blood sugar after you eat. And it should not be over 110, or if you're European, 6.1, after you eat at your highest peak. And, I ate my oatmeal with berries every morning, and I checked, I was like 160, right? Or 170. It was like way. And another thing I want to say here, what people or what the doctors tell you is normal, it's not optimal. So basically when we look at labs, what's considered normal is like the average of the population. Those ranges that they give you. And I have that discussion with my mom all the time, who has diabetes and high blood pressure and is on medication. And of course she has cataracts now, but she's like, she's not willing to make those changes to her diet. She's like, I'm like, okay, that's your decision. I don't want to be blind. Honestly, if I want to see well, like my friend Sal, who's 101, so to me, making some, what people think is sacrifices, you just need to learn how to make amazing. My foods are amazing. People love my food. I love cooking. You need to just learn how to do them differently than our traditional sad, standard American diet, the sad diet. So yeah, it's your own choice. That's what I tell people. It's your choice.
Yeah, and I get that. I've had people say, you can, they go to the doctor, and the doctor says you need to do A, B, C, D, or E, or you can take the pill, and they just go, as much as I want to, my lifestyle is such, I just give me the prescription because, and just as you say, it's a choice, and there's no judgment on that whatsoever. We all do what we need to survive, and ideally to thoroughly enjoy our life. So we totally get that. Thank you for your input on my friend. I do want to mention, because his artwork is staggering, I think his website is finally up, and I think it's johnklessler.com, but I don't know for sure, but I do want that to be available for people. It's very uplifting and inspiring art that has a lot of consciousness in it. So just give a plug for that. I also, this is plug time for a minute, and we're going to give you one too. I also want to encourage all of our listeners to be downloading and playing the Peace and Harmony program that we have, peaceandharmonydownload.com. As much as good is happening in the world, also because of this virus, a lot of people are finding more hostilities, open hostilities in the close quarters with the family. According to something that I just saw in England, in the first 3 weeks, domestic homicide, like men killing women, more than doubled in the first 3 weeks of this. So here's a free download program that we're playing during this as well, peaceandharmonydownload.com. So I encourage people to do this. I know you have one more sentence you wanted to say, and I know we want to tell people where they can find out more about you. And I think you have a giveaway of a bunch of key points you want to help people with. So your choice of the sequence that you do those.
Thank you, David. And what you do is so amazing. I will definitely have to learn more about that Peace and Harmony program that you do. That sounds and a great addition to my work, actually. So what I want to say is that mindset is also really important for my work and like almost everything else. So if you cannot even see yourself or don't have a why you want to see better, a lot of times I hear I want 20/20 vision, but like why? Like what difference would it make for you to see clearly, right? So, and believing, really like what Dr. Joe Dispenza, you might have, heard of him, like that idea that you really feel you already have achieved this. So the mindset is huge, because I hear a lot of people, I'm blind without my glasses. I'm like, oh, really? You can't see anything? It's all black? No, I see you, and I'm like, oh, okay. So, it's like a lot of times I see people with minor prescriptions saying, I'm blind as a bat, so mindset, that's one thing I wanted to kind of add in. And that visualizations or imagination and memory are closely linked to eyesight. So there is that aspect of how you can actually see something, and how good your memory is related to how good you see in the present moment. So I leave it at that. And I do have a gift. It's called 10 Habits for Healthy and Happy Eyes. And you can download that at naturallyclearvision.com/10 habits. And that gives you great tips, 10 tips. It includes the palming that I talked about, the eye rest and the sun exposure. So it includes like some of the greatest things you can do for your eyesight. Yeah. So I want to encourage everybody to download that.
Good. And that'll be in the show notes below, all the links that we talked about. I want to end with a very uplifting thing that I think you'll love. There was many decades ago, I don't even know if they still exist anymore, but there was a study of 7 cultures in the world that all had people living well past 150, like 160. Are you familiar with this?
I've heard about a place in Greece where they're all old, and I know what the common denominator of those people is, but I don't know if it's the same one that you...
Well, the main common denominator, there were 7 places in the world, in different parts of the world, and all of them were in high altitudes. Women were having children when they were 80. 100% of the population got a brand new 3rd set of teeth when they hit about 125. In those cultures, the older you were, the better you were at doing what you did. So in one of the cultures, I think it was in South America, but I don't remember exactly, but it was made up of several tribes, and they were not right close to each other. So the way to communicate between them was they would have runners who would run the messages and run the news around between the people. And because they were the ones who brought the news, they were highly respected. It was a very influential position to be in. And in those cultures, they believed the older you were, the better runner you were. So they thought a 20-year-old could not run as well as a 30, and that a 70-year-old could outdo them all. And so they had that value of, as you age, you get better, which is not necessarily a current cultural thing now. So when we talk about the mindset, that's one of the first things that came up. And another was, I was at a lecture one time given by Deepak Chopra, and this was, I want to say 30 years ago. And he went through and research, and he named all this research that had been done on the different cells in the body and the different parts of the body and how long they last. And it's ridiculous. And he said, so some of these things will go on for, I don't want to say centuries, but I think it was. And he said, so when you put all this together, and this is the way the body is organized, why do we age? And the only reason that they could come up with was because we think we should. So when you talk about somebody who's saying, I'm blind as a bat, or who's expecting, the eye doctors say, oh, you're this, now you're 40, we're going to expect this, now you're 60, we're going to expect that, this is what I love about what you're saying is, it's not true. That we've been fed, well, I don't know if you want to say a bill of goods or whatever, but the truth is that I think the human body is meant to go for, I think, a good 1,000 years and still be able to do a 26-mile marathon, So I think this idea of mindset and what we expect and what we tell ourselves we can do, it's so clearly how 90% of the vision is determined by, if I think red is what scares me, there's so much red in the world, that's really going to affect how much I want to see. I really want to thank you, Claudia. This has been very informational, very educational for me, very practical for me. I hope so many people take advantage of your programs. We'd love to have a world where everyone sees better. We want to give you the final ending. Any parting words you'd like to close with is the mic's on you. So what would you like to say?
Thank you, David. What you just shared was really beautiful, and I agree. It's like, do you find joy? Like, are you looking forward? Are you getting up in the morning, right? Our eyesight, and I like to use the word vision as well, because vision also encompasses for me my life purpose. Where am I going? What's my vision for my day, for my life, right? Versus just, oh my God, I have to get up today. So all the older folks that I know, they all love their life. They don't think like, oh, I'm 90 now, I broke my hip now, I might as well die. So you wake up every morning and you're excited and joyful and grateful for what you have. And I think the mindset is almost the key to anything in life, right? Having that right mindset. So yeah, thank you. I don't have, the only thing I heard about that island in Greece is that they find joy and they don't get bothered by little problems, right? They don't get so agitated about all the things that we can tend to get agitated about. So I think that's a great motto, to just enjoy life. And what do you want to see? Like, are you even curious? Are you even interested in seeing, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's so exciting to me. Thank you so much for being here. I just need to add, I remember my father saying to me once, stop driving yourself nuts about things that only you see. So, we want to do that for people. You mentioned twice now this idea of what's your purpose. A lot of people are struggling for that. We have a real simple, fun, takethisquiznow.com. And it'll give you some information. If you're not sure where you're going, if you don't have a clear vision of what you want to do with your life, real fun quiz that gives you some follow-up free information to help you pick a direction. And we do want everybody waking up excited about life. This is an amazing planet going on, and we get to choose where we put our attention. We're not obligated to put our attention on things that other people tell us is important. We get to choose what's important for us. Claudia, I want to thank you so much for being here. This has been a great joy for me. I love your smile. I love just your enthusiasm about life, and what you're offering people, I think, is hugely valuable. I wish you great success, and I encourage everyone in our audience to go to your website, take advantage of your programs, follow up, and have a very clear vision of the world, of themselves, as something wonderful and amazing. Thank you again.
Thank you, David. It was an honor.
Thank you for listening to another helpful, fun, and life-changing episode of Here We Come to Save the Day with David Adelson. To access the show notes and additional resources, go to herewecometosavetheday.com. If you've enjoyed the show and find it helpful and fun, please leave us a review and share with a friend. Tell us issues troubling you or questions you have. We're here to help you. That's what Here We Come to Save the Day is all about. Till next time.